Well, joining us now from New York is Rabbi Marc Schneier. He's a president of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding. You know, Indonesia has no formal diplomatic ties with Israel. So domestically, how sensitive is this decision to potentially send troops into Gaza, even if it's under a UN mandate?
On one hand, it has no formal relations with Israel. At the same time, you do see economic, agricultural, and technological dealings between Indonesia and Israel. But back in September at the United Nations, President Subianto of Indonesia made some groundbreaking remarks in terms of speaking of the need to ensure Israel's security and safety, and also spoke of a reconciliation between the two great Abrahamic traditions, Judaism and Islam. On a personal note, I dealt with President Subianto's predecessor, President Widodo, who translated my book, Sons of Abraham, into Indonesian. And Indonesia coming on board is a very, very significant first step. As you mentioned, it is the world's largest Muslim majority country, and having Indonesia make this overture can only resonate and reverberate in a very positive way throughout the Islamic world.
You know, the foreign ministry was very quick to stress that this is not normalization. The question, of course, is does this deployment in any way open any quiet channels with Israel, or is Jakarta really just determined to keep this strictly multilateral and humanitarian? And of course, it's important to note that Jakarta says that they're sending these troops under the premise that this is going to be peacekeeping, not peace enforcing. And we also know that Hamas has not openly agreed to actually disarming. So what would that look like?
Well, may I remind you, it took 40 years for the Israelites to get to the promised land. I'm not suggesting that we're at the promised land of Indonesia-Israel relations, but I do believe that journey has begun with this very dramatic overture by President Subianto in terms of supporting President Trump's plan for the rebuilding and the restoration of Gaza. I only see this as a very positive step and a first step in seeing a normalization between Indonesia and Israel.
How much of this move is about Indonesia positioning itself as a major global Muslim power rather than just responding to the situation in Gaza?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with Indonesia wanting to position themselves that way. And what Indonesia is, again, I pointed out, as you did, it's the largest Muslim majority country. It's no different than the grand prize of normalization, Saudi Arabia, which is the spiritual center and the spiritual capital of world Islam. If we are able to see a normalization between two of these great Islamic countries, Indonesia and Saudi Arabia, again, it would only resonate and reverberate in the most positive way throughout the greater Muslim world.
How can we expect Israel to react to the decision to bring Indonesian troops into the Gaza Strip? Ultimately, there is a lot of fear amongst Israeli officials, amongst even Israeli civilians, about who's going to take part in this stabilization force, because many of those who do want to get involved, like Turkey, for example, are not supporters of the state of Israel. In fact, they are, they even stand accused, and we know that they work with Hamas, they accept Hamas leaders within their countries. Is this something that is going to be perceived positively by the state of Israel, and should it?
I understand the concern. At the same time, this is the vision of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who has demonstrated time and time again being the great champion and defender of the state of Israel. He has a great vision for what he would like to see happen in Gaza. Countries like Turkey, like Indonesia, like Qatar and others who might be somewhat controversial also want to invest in President Trump's vision. And I think that the state of Israel needs to recognize that we can depend on the President of the United States to truly safeguard and to defend, protect the interests of the state of Israel.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Rabbi Schneier.